Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This is the continuation of Swallow the Stars. This will be Part 40, Chapter 40, entitled Double Date. It's barely evening when Hitoshi knocks on the door of the Aizawa apartment. He's winded and warm, having run all the way from the station. These days, a run that distance doesn't make him break a sweat, which is good because he's dressed nicely for whatever they're doing tonight, but he couldn't bring himself to take extra time to walk. He hadn't seen Izuku in a week, and half of that time had been spent with Hitoshi being anxious due to the whole Hosu fiasco and the knowledge that Izuku got hurt again when Hitoshi wasn't there to help. He doesn't blame Izuku, though. He never does. It's not Izuku's fault that the world seems to be out to get him, that chaos and destruction seem to hunt him down for fun. Maybe it's all drawn in by Amahaki's power, which is a theory that Shoto had brought up because Amahaki is a black hole, so it's unlikely to be true. But honestly, because Amahaki is a god, it wouldn't surprise Hitoshi at all. Or maybe Izuku has a recessive quirk trait that just attracts danger to him. Not that that would matter, though, if Hitoshi could just fucking be there when Izuku needs him. After they'd been kidnapped together, Hitoshi foolishly thought that all he would need to do is stick to Izuku like glue and everything would be fine. He could protect Izuku, Izuku could protect him, and everything would work out. But being in Class 1A has put a wrench in that plan. They were separated at the USJ, and they couldn't join the same internship because they hadn't gotten the same offers, except for ones that they hadn't really wanted. And Hitoshi had hoped, that Izuku would be safe during his internship with a pro hero to watch his back, especially one who had a minor healing quirk. But instead, danger found Izuku, and he did what he always has to do. He saved people, because that's just the kind of person Izuku is. The sound of the locks clicking open keys Hitoshi back into his surroundings, and he watches the door slowly swing inward. And then Izuku is there, right there, staring at the ground for a moment before his gaze travels up. Hitoshi waits until he sees beautiful, iridescent irises before he steps over the threshold and wraps his arms tightly around him. Words escape him. He wants to say, hello, wants to say, I missed you, wants to say, you're an idiot and I need you in my life, but his throat is closed up and he can't push anything out. Tears choke him, but he refuses to let them fall, not now that Izuku is in his arms again. Not now when he's safe. Hitoshi? Izuku is quick to return the hug just as tightly, his arm slipping around Hitoshi's waist and squeezing. His shirt feels tighter, too, and Hitoshi can only assume that Izuku had fisted his hands in the fabric. You're early. I thought you'd be sleeping still. Couldn't sleep, Hitoshi says. His voice is rough, both from overuse at his internship and from the emotion sweeping through him. As he buries his face in Izuku's shoulder, he had gotten off the train close to 11 in the morning, but even after greeting his family and collapsing into bed, sleep had evaded him. He's been awake now for over 24 hours, but he can't bring himself to care. He would have been here sooner if it wouldn't have worried his family. Hey, Izuku murmurs, tilting his head against Hitoshi's shoulder. His chin digs in, but Hitoshi doesn't care, and pressing a soft kiss to Hitoshi's neck. It's okay, Hitoshi. I'm right here. I'm okay. Hitoshi clings tighter. I know. This isn't even the worst Izuku has been hurt before, but it's the first time that Hitoshi couldn't be there soon after, couldn't help immediately. All he'd been able to do was call when he had time and text out of necessity when he didn't. Takes a few more long moments before Hitoshi feels steady enough to lean back, but even then he just slides his hands up from Izuku's back to his neck and jaw. Your dad knows, right? Izuku had told him that Aizawa had figured out that they're dating, but it doesn't hurt to double-check. Izuku nods once, his eyes carefully flitting between Hitoshi's. Yeah, he knows. Great. Hitoshi tries for a smile. Can I kiss you then? Instead of answering, Izuku lifts himself up on his toes and leans in. Hitoshi takes that as a yes, as he guides Izuku the rest of the way. It's a soft kiss, slow and almost hesitant, but Izuku sighs against Hitoshi's lips, and Hitoshi slips his fingers into Izuku's hair to hold him close. They probably shouldn't do this for too long. The door's still open, and Hitoshi thinks it's probably a miracle that the cats haven't escaped yet, but he doesn't pull away until he gets another kiss in. How's your hand? He asks as he closes the door and takes his shoes off. Aizawa-san isn't in the living room, and he's not in the kitchen, either, which means that he's probably in his bedroom, either napping or doing school stuff. There's no way Aizawa-san would leave Izuku home alone right now, so it's the only thing that makes sense. Izuku sighs and walks into the kitchen. Hitoshi follows right on his heels. It's getting better. The way that Izuku says that makes Hitoshi think that it's true but slow. And Izuku isn't used to slow healing, not with physical wounds at least. Also, your voice sounds like shit. Make some tea for yourself and stop talking. That, at least, he says with a smile. Hitoshi scoffs, but does as he's told. He should be resting his voice right now, but the hug and then the kisses had made sign impossible, and Hitoshi had to respond to Izuku's questions, had to cement in his head that he really is okay. It's soothing, though, to go through the familiar motions of moving around in this kitchen, filling up the kettle and then turning it on, fishing around in the pantry for the tea, pulling down the mug Aizawa had gifted him for Christmas last year. This isn't technically his home, but it honestly may as well be. His parents may have custody, and he spends most of his time with his family, but this is the space Hitoshi wants to stay in as often as possible, preferably with Izuku right by his side. I went to see Recovery Girl on Thursday after my appointment with Kiyumi-san. Izuku continues, picking up a dish, soaking it in the sink, and starting to scrub it. There's no more healing for her to do, but she's overseeing my physical therapy. Honestly, when I tried to write in my notebooks yesterday, I kept dropping the pencil, and my hand had hurt after only a few minutes. He screws up his face, and it's frustrated and filled with distaste. But he's washing the dishes right now, so he's either gotten better or he's being stubborn and forcing his way through the motions, most likely the latter. With a tap to Izuku's elbow, Hitoshi grabs his attention to sign at him. Were our classmates annoying on Wednesday? The police had released a statement early Wednesday morning and ran on the news about the fight with Stain and his subsequent capture. There had been a dark and grainy photo shown of Jeddah and Izuku on night patrol, both of them in their black costumes, backlit by a dim orange streetlight. Their civilian names hadn't been released, as is customary for underground heroes, but Class 1A would undoubtedly have recognized Izuku's hero name and costume if they'd been listening. Yeah, Izuku says with a smile as he holds out a dish toward Hitoshi. It's already dry, so Hitoshi takes it and puts it away. Shoto called me earlier, and we had pretty much the same conversation I had with you. I wish I could tell you guys everything, but some of what happened is being kept under wraps. Hitoshi just shrugs. He gets it. A good chunk of hero work is hidden behind non-disclosure agreements and top-secret clearances. It won't be the last time they can't tell each other everything. Bakugo called me an idiot, Izuku continues, but only after asking if I was out of the hospital yet, since the report only said that Jeddah and I suffered injuries, but were expected to make full recoveries. He smiles over at Hitoshi, and Hitoshi melts with the expression. It's a warm smile, not blindingly bright, but still happy and genuine. Also, I know you don't check your notifications often, unless they're from me, but Mina made a group chat for all of us, you, me, her, Bakugo, Shoto, Sero, Kirishima, and Kaminari, and you should accept the invite today, or she's going to get mad at you on Monday. I held her off by explaining your terrible sleep schedule, but she knows you got back today. Hitoshi sighs and rolls his eyes, but he's only vaguely annoyed. The truth is that he likes all of them, considers them friends. But they're very active through texting, and Hitoshi just really isn't, which might have something to do with Izuku being his only friend in middle school, and their continued penchant for just calling each other when they want to talk. Still, he pulls his phone from his pocket and opens his messages app, accepting the invite and then promptly muting the channel. Seeing the name of the chat and everyone else's nicknames within it, he changes his own name to Eyebags and then closes out and clicks his phone screen off. Catching Izuku's eyes, Hitoshi arches a brow. Chaos Squad, huh? He signs, amusement pulling the corner of his lips and crinkling the edges of his eyes. Izuku laughs. Mina and Kaminari had a debate about it for 15 minutes before Bakugo changed the chat name to Losers, and then suddenly Mina and Kaminari came to an agreement. Everyone still went with Bakugo's nicknames for them, though. Hitoshi muses, hands moving fluidly through the signs. I'm surprised he changed his own name. Oh, he didn't, Izuku assures, passing off another dish to Hitoshi. Mina thought it was dumb that he didn't have a nickname, so she pulled Blasty out of thin air and locked Bakugo's permissions in the chat so he can't change it back. Hitoshi snorts and picks up his mug to sip at his tea. It's good to watch Izuku be so animated again. Clearly, despite the whole Stain thing, Izuku's internship went well. He doesn't know what Jeddah did or had Izuku do, but whatever it was, he seems better for it. And, knowing Izuku, Jeddah had probably been adopted into the family now, so Hitoshi would make sure to thank her when he inevitably sees her at some holiday gathering or other. A door opens further into the apartment, and Hitoshi looks up to watch Aizawa-san step into the hallway, stifling a yawn. Coco is perched on his shoulder, and Leo trots ahead of him, right into the kitchen to wind around Hitoshi's ankles. Hi, Aizawa-san. Hitoshi signs. Hey, problem child. Aizawa-san pats Hitoshi on the shoulder as he moves to wake up the coffee machine, pulling a mug out as the water heats. How was your internship? He leans against the counter and gives Hitoshi his full attention. Out of the corner of his eye, Hitoshi catches Izuku doing the same. It was good. Hitoshi signs quickly before taking another drink of tea. Once the mug is safely back on the counter, he continues. They have me practicing my quirk a lot, so my throat is sore. Izuku has forbidden me from talking. Damn right, Izuku says, like he's proud, and Hitoshi reaches out and swats his arm for it. Anyway, Hitoshi rolls his eyes. I learned a lot. They work really well as a team, and they taught me how to make it work logistically. It's a little different, though, because their quirk is like fractured between them. It's cool. They can fight solo, though it's mostly quirkless when they do, but when they combine their quirks, it's like everything clicks into place. He already wrote down his analysis of what he saw, and he's eager to share that with Izuku later, maybe tonight after Amajiki and Togata leave. Patrolling as a duo isn't actually all that different from solo patrolling, though they did emphasize that the pay is barely enough. They have to work almost twice as hard to make the same amount as two solo heroes. Izuku makes a face. That's stupid. No one does that if two solo heroes team up. Have they complained to the commission about it? I'm sure they have, Aizawa says, before Hitoshi gets a chance. It's just that the commission is slow when it comes to dealing with underground heroes. We exist in a weird spot for them. Our identities are a closely guarded secret, and we rely on them to keep it that way. They cover our backs with NDAs and cracking down on any press that want to push their luck, but they also tend to look the other way when we're having administrative problems because we don't bring in money or fame from interviews or promotional deals. I hate that, Izuku says vehemently, and Hitoshi can't help but agree. Cloak and Dagger are great heroes, and they were fun and knowledgeable mentors. They had a lot of ideas about his quirk, especially once he told him that he was looking into getting a support device that would mimic another person's voice. Both Cloak and Dagger are skilled at infiltration, and they hyped up impressions as being invaluable in such missions. And they made him practice doing voices without his future support item. He nailed Dagger's voice Thursday night while he was complaining about the viral discussions of Stain's ideologies, and he almost scared Cloak shitless when he bid them farewell in his voice. His next goal is to be able to do an impression of Aizawa-san's voice, which shouldn't be too hard since their pitches and general tonal quality are close. Aizawa-san shrugs. That's just the way it works, right now at least. Who knows, though, maybe you'll be the fire under their ass that they need to fix the way they do things. God knows no one in this generation has that kind of sway. And those who do, Hitoshi signs, are daylight heroes who don't have to deal with it anyway, right? Exactly. Grumbling to himself under his breath, Izuku returns to washing the rest of the dishes. Hitoshi takes his distraction as an opportunity and angles his body toward Aizawa-san, who raises an eyebrow at him. Hitoshi doesn't even think about how he wants to phrase this. If Aizawa-san knows already, then this shouldn't be a big deal. I want to take Izuku out for his birthday, he signs, trying to be as quiet as possible, barely moving his arms so that the fabric of his shirt doesn't rustle too much. To his credit, Aizawa-san's expression barely changes. Do you have a place in mind? He signs much faster than normal, probably just in case Izuku turns around to see why they're suddenly being so quiet. Why Hitoshi isn't embarrassed or flustered about talking through taking Izuku on a date to his dad, he doesn't really know. Probably because he's too tired right now to care. He nods firmly, confident in his plan. I've thought about it a lot. I admittedly have not been sleeping great the last few nights, which gave me plenty of time to plan. Aizawa-san nods, and a rare smile pulls at his mouth for a brief moment. Text me the details, and for the record, I'm happy for you two. When he finishes signing, Aizawa-san reaches out and pulls Hitoshi into a one-armed hug, giving his shoulders a quick but firm squeeze before letting him go. Of course, that is when a blush blooms over Hitoshi's cheeks, and he looks away to hide it, though if Aizawa-san's breath of a laugh is anything to go by, he doesn't succeed. Once the dishes have been washed, dried, and put away, Hitoshi leads Izuku into the living room and turns on the television, steering clear of the news and settling on reruns of a show he used to love watching in his now non-existent downtime. Aizawa-san joins them. A few minutes later, after finishing off his first cup of coffee and pouring himself a second, he posts himself in the armchair and pulls out a stack of papers to grade. 2 episodes in, they're interrupted by a short series of knocks at the door. Izuku's on his feet in an instant, and Hitoshi, resigning himself to speaking for the rest of the night, follows as soon as he turns the television off. The door is already open when he slips in behind Izuku, hands in his pockets, as he appraises the 2 third-years who step inside. Amajiki is in a dark sweater that's loose on his frame, sleeves sinking down to cover most of his hands, and equally dark jeans and shoes. He looks nervous. Hitoshi's pretty sure that that's the poor guy's default state of being. If the arm banded around his waist and the way his shoulders are folded in are anything to go by. Togata, on the other hand, looks relaxed and happy in an untucked red button-up rolled jeans and fully laced-up boots. It's Togeda who talks first, holding his hand out toward Izuku. You must be Izuku. It's good to finally meet you. Izuku shakes his hand eagerly, but Hitoshi shies away when it looks like Togeda wants to shake his as well. Togeda's bright energy might just kill Hitoshi if he takes in too much of it at once. And you're Shinso, yeah? I watched you both during the sports festival, and Tamaki's told me all about you, Izuku. That statement brings a blush to both Amajiki's face and to Izuku's, though one seems to be a shy blush and the other probably comes from a place of pride at having someone Izuku considers a friend talk about him in a positive way. Aizawa-san thankfully saves them from stuttering their way into embarrassed comments in the wake of Togeda's sincerity. Togeda, Amajiki. He stares them both down, but shockingly, nothing about their own expressions change. Hitoshi thought for sure that Amajiki would shy away from the direct eye contact at least, but instead, he seems to relax under Aizawa-san's gaze. You have your provisional licenses, and begrudgingly my trust, so you're in charge. Bring them back by 10 at the latest. This one, he ruffles Izuku's hair, attracts trouble just by breathing. Hey! If you run into a villain or worse, come right back here, understood? Togeda smiles and nods, throwing an arm around Amajiki's shoulders. We've got it covered. They'll both come back in one piece. Aizawa-san nods. Good. You two as well. No injuries tonight. Got it? Dad! Izuku whines, making Hitoshi have to swallow a chuckle or risk getting swatted. We're literally just going to a movie. Nothing bad's going to happen. Ah, Hitoshi says, draping his arm over Izuku's shoulders like he's ready to get picked up and be carried on Izuku's back. Now you jinxed it. We should probably just stay here, after all. Can we? Amajiki asks, his gaze turning longingly toward the interior of the apartment. Unfortunately for both Hitoshi and Amajiki, everyone else seems to want them out. Togeda drags Amajiki through the door, and Izuku does end up carrying Hitoshi when he makes no move to dislodge himself from slumping against his boyfriend's back. Aizawa-san waves them off, and then closes the door with a finality that tells them not to come back until they absolutely have to. Damn. Will you carry me the whole way? Hitoshi asks. His chin is resting on top of Izuku's head, and his arms are looped loosely around his shoulders and left to drape over his chest. Izuku has his hands under Hitoshi's thighs, but Hitoshi's doing most of the work, keeping himself up by gripping Izuku's waist with his knees. Izuku laughs, loud and joyous. Absolutely not, he says, humor playing through his tone like the most beautiful instrument Hitoshi has ever heard. But Izuku-kun, Hitoshi whines, and he honestly doesn't even care that Togeda's watching them with twinkling eyes and a mischievous smile. I'm tired. You're a menace is what you are. Despite what he says, though, Izuku doesn't make a move to put Hitoshi down. I'll carry you halfway. How about that? Hitoshi makes a show of thinking about it, humming and tilting his head. Okay, deal. He finally says, smoothing his thumb over Izuku's collarbone. It's so nice to be like this with Izuku again after a week apart, separated by cities and injuries and shit sleep schedules. Going into the internships, Hitoshi hadn't thought he could ever miss anyone so much, but he'd miss Izuku like a lost limb no matter how busy he got. Hours could pass without acknowledging Izuku's absence, but inevitably something would happen and Hitoshi would open his mouth and turn to say something to Izuku, only to remember that he wasn't actually there. It sucked. But they're back together again, and Hitoshi is intent on keeping it this way. So, Togeda says, sweeping his hand out between them. You two just got back from your internships, right? How was it? Mine was good, Hitoshi says. He lifts his head so that it's easier to talk. He has no idea how Izuku manages to hold conversations with his chin digging into some part of Hitoshi. It's uncomfortable and hard on his jaw. I interned with an underground agency in Yokohama. It was interesting to see an actual brick-and-mortar underground agency, and my mentors were good. Amajiki leans around Togeda. Most underground heroes are independent, right? Is that where you think you'll end up? Hitoshi nods. It's easier for a lot of them to distance themselves from agencies just so that they can patrol when and where they want. It helps to evade the press as well. There's a certain amount of politics and attention that follows a physical agency, no matter how well they keep it on the down low. He hums before answering the second question, leaning back a little on Izuku's back. Izuku doesn't stumble or lose his balance at all, which is not surprising given his physique, but it's still impressive as hell. I definitely want to go underground. My quirk works best if no one knows its activation requirements. Not sure if I want to go independent or agency, though. I noticed that you didn't use your quirk during the sports festival, Togeda says, snapping his fingers and pointing at Hitoshi. Was that on purpose, then? Nah, Hitoshi shakes his head. I was planning on using it during the final event, but I got unlucky and went up against this asshole first round. He raps his knuckles a couple of times against the top of Izuku's head. I will drop you. You love me too much to do that. Hitoshi counters, which makes Izuku grumble and hike Hitoshi up into a better position. Hitoshi takes a moment to smile fondly to himself before he continues. Izuku knows my quirk inside and out. There's no way he would have stumbled and fallen into the activation requirements, so I just didn't bother. We agreed to fight quirkless for that round. Togeda nods in understanding. What about you, Izuku? How was your internship? Beneath Hitoshi's arms, Izuku's shoulders stiffen. Ah, he says, turning his head toward Amajiki and Togeda. I'm assuming Amajiki-senpai told you I was in Hosu? When Togeda nods, Izuku falls silent for a moment, likely thinking of the best way to answer. Okay, so, ignoring the whole Nomu attack, I had a really great time. My mentor was amazing. We had a lot of stealth and sparring lessons, and she also walked me through how to handle working for a physical agency, just in case I end up at one. I had to come back after the attack, though. Togeda leans back, startled but curious. It's Amajiki who asks the question, though. What happened? Did your mentor get hurt in the attack? Not in the Nomu attack, no. Izuku hedges. Hitoshi risks his balance by pushing a hand carefully through Izuku's hair. Izuku hums into the touch, and his shoulders relax, so Hitoshi counts it as a success. I'm going to tell you one thing, and then I'll let you piece it together. Izuku turns toward both of the third years and nods his head in a short bow. My hero name is Void. For a second, neither of them react, and then Amajiki sucks in a breath. Holy shit. Stain? Izuku nods once. Jetta got hurt bad. I managed to walk away with just a stab wound, but it wasn't pretty, and we got lucky. With her injuries, there was no way she could properly mentor me through the rest of the week, so I got sent home. He kicks at the ground, and a small rock skitters away up a path. Which really sucks, because I wanted to help the relief efforts after the attack. Hitoshi carves his fingers through Izuku's hair again, silently assuring him that it's over, that he did good, that everything's okay now. They spend the rest of the walk to the movie theater, avoiding the topic of Stain. It's for the best, really, since they're out in public and no one is supposed to be able to link Void to Izuku unless Izuku chooses to reveal that information. Obviously, that choice doesn't include their nosy classmates or the entirety of UA's faculty, but it's not like they're going to spread classified information. At least they better fucking not, or they're going to find themselves waking up naked in the country with no memory of how they got there, courtesy of Hitoshi himself. Hell, if Hitoshi ropes Shoto into it, they may even find themselves frozen in place somewhere. Amajiki is the first to initiate the topic change, talking quietly about his work study with Fatgum and how much he hates daylight heroics despite the fact of having the style and quirk for it. Besides, he sighs, it's too late to go underground now. Mirio wouldn't let me. Togeda just laughs at that, and he pulls Amajiki against his side with a loose arm around his shoulders, and Amajiki doesn't pull away. Izuku asks Amajiki about Kirishima and Yayorozu, to which Amajiki says, they're both very talented. Fatgum brings us around food stalls a lot, and by the third day he managed to convince Yayorozu to eat every time we stopped. He had her working idly through her quirk the whole time. Kirishima needs a confidence boost, but Fatgum is good for that. I'm not sure if he managed to get through to Kirishima by this morning, though. That makes Hitoshi frown. Kirishima needing a confidence boost? It seems so entirely out of character for the boy, Hitoshi knows. Bright-eyed and full of smiles, ready to help anyone with whatever problems they had. But then again, that might all just be covering up his feelings about himself. We can work on that, Hitoshi says, and Izuku nods in agreement. Kirishima is one of Hitoshi's very few friends, someone he would be willing to take a bullet for if the situation to do so ever arose. Like hell, he's going to sit around letting his friend think of himself as anything less than amazing. They reach the halfway point of the theater, and Izuku doesn't make Hitoshi get down, and because Hitoshi is lazy and exhausted, he doesn't offer to walk on his own or remind Izuku of their deal. He'll make it up to him later. As soon as Togeda mentions that his work study is under Sir Night-Eye, Izuku's fanboy side slides and clicks into place. He and Togeda start talking animatedly, gushing about Sir Night-Eye's quirk, how cool it is that he'd managed to secure himself a corner in the industry that's both daylight and focused on gathering information. Inevitably, the conversation turns toward All Might, but instead of expressing his displeasure with the number one hero, Izuku's full of praise. Wait, Hitoshi says, leaning forward and turning his head to try and see Izuku's face. I thought we hated All Might now. Oh, I mean... Izuku takes his hand, the right one, with a new pink scar hidden beneath his repaired glove, off of Hitoshi's thigh for a moment to tilt it back and forth in a so-so gesture. He's a shit teacher, though he did apologize to me right before the internships. I forgot to mention that, but he's still a good hero. I don't know. Maybe it's not great for me to have this split in my head between hero persona and civilian identity, but it's kind of hard not to. When I was raised by Aizawa and Hizashi, it's like, what heroes do in costume and in front of the media isn't always how they are as people. All Might is dumb and a pushover, and doesn't have a clue how to teach a class, but he does know how to be a hero, and he's pretty good at it. He shrugs. It's also hard to start hating him on a dime when he was my idol through my childhood, you know? Hitoshi grumbles and drops his chin to Izuku's head, ignoring the mumbled complaint of minor pain. I still hate him. Symbol of peace or not, it's his fault you got hurt. Tokita leans away again, as if he's trying to take in the whole picture of the underclassmen beside him. What does that mean? How did he get you hurt? That particular conversation lasts them all the way to the theater doors, where Hitoshi finally gets off Izuku's back and takes his hand instead, linking their fingers together. Izuku leans against him, and Hitoshi holds him up without question or complaint. He buys their tickets too, even though Tokita offers to cover all of them. Hitoshi doesn't complain when Amajiki pays for the snacks, though. The movie they settle on is just mindless action, and Hitoshi loses himself in the graphics and doesn't mind the loose definition of plot because it means that he can focus on the easy slide of his thumb over Izuku's knuckles instead of what's happening on screen. On the walk home, Hitoshi's content to stay silent with Amajiki as Izuku and Tokita talk about what they liked and didn't like about the movie. It's easy conversation, and the streets are quiet as darkness pulls in around them, but Hitoshi makes sure to keep his eyes on their surroundings just in case. But despite the universe's best efforts to throw every possible danger at Izuku, they make it back to the apartment without issue. Izuku thanks the third years for coming with him and expresses his happiness at meeting Tokita, admitting that he's heard quite a bit about him through Amajiki and that if he ever wants another set of eyes to look over his quirk, Izuku would be more than happy to do so. They bid goodbye in front of the door, and Hitoshi pulls Izuku inside the moment Tokita and Amajiki turn away. Izuku laughs, stumbling over the threshold and turning to close and lock the door behind them. Are you in a rush? He teases as he takes off his shoes, lining them up neatly along the wall. Hitoshi steps into the hall, nodding at Aizawa-san, who is sprawled on the sofa now, but still apparently reading through some homework packets or essays. Yeah, he answers honestly. I'm tired, and you need to rest too. It's not all that late, only 9:30 or so, but it's been far too long since Hitoshi got any sort of good sleep, and he is absolutely going to take advantage of his mother's permission for him to spend the night. Aizawa-san, we're going to bed, he announces, already pulling Izuku down the hall. Sleep well, is Aizawa-san's response. Once they've changed into their pajamas and they're taking turns in the bathroom, Hitoshi tugs Izuku into bed and holds him close. Izuku doesn't protest, sinking into Hitoshi's embrace and burying his face against his chest. Toshi, you okay? He asks, words muffled into Hitoshi's shirt. His arm is draped over Hitoshi's side, and Hitoshi shivers as his fingers start tracing slow circles into his back. After a slow inhale, Hitoshi nods. Yeah, I don't know. I missed you. He swears he can feel Izuku smiling. I missed you too, he admits, pressing a quick kiss to Hitoshi's chest before he leans back enough so that they can see each other. In the darkness, illuminated only by the glow of the streetlights flittering around the edges of the curtains, Izuku looks ethereal and a little haunting. His eyes are big and vibrant, his hair is dark and wispy like smoke, and his smile could consume the galaxy. I'm really okay, though. I promise. Hitoshi sighs and leans forward to press their foreheads together. I know. It's just good to get visual confirmation. He smiles a little and brushes their noses together before kissing Izuku softly, slowly. Fatigue weighs him down, but Izuku's enough of an energy source to keep him up for now. One day, the universe is going to let me prevent you from getting hurt in the first place. I'll pick a god to pray to on that day. Izuku laughs almost silently as he presses closer. As long as you're not blaming yourself for my shit luck, I think we'll be okay. I'm not. He wants to, sometimes, when he's alone at night with his thoughts keeping him awake. It's inevitable that everything eventually feels like his fault when he's tired and not thinking straight, but he knows, in his cognizant moments, that Izuku's injuries are not due to Hitoshi's failure to keep him safe. Most of the time, their causes are so far beyond what Hitoshi can control that all he really can do is offer himself as support when Izuku comes out of the other side. I'll always be here for you, though, he promises with another kiss. Always. You're not getting rid of me. Neither is the stupid universe. Good, Izuku breathes, and Hitoshi can feel Izuku's body relaxing against him. I can't do any of this without you. Not anymore. He cups Hitoshi's cheek and guides him in for one more kiss. Now, go to sleep. I'll be right here. I love you, Hitoshi says, soft and quiet and full of as much affection as he can possibly push into his voice. I love you so much. Izuku smiles, and it's everything Hitoshi would live and die for. I love you too, Itoshi. Until the end of time. He settles himself against Itoshi's chest again, and Itoshi nestles his head atop Izuku's curls. Sleep catches him in gentle arms, and Itoshi doesn't dream. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 40 of Swallow the Stars. Chapter 41 will be next. I hope you all are still enjoying. We're nearing the end of this fic, and as always, thank you so much for listening.